That kind of looks like a middle finger to me. I wonder what my tent is trying to tell me. What's going on, everyone? We've got a fun weekend of adventure in store for us. 2 nights, we've got a snowstorm coming, and I'm looking forward to it. Tonight we're going to be staying close to the truck, and I say we because my good friend Joe is going to be joining me. He's my adventure partner for this weekend, a familiar face to the channel, and a very good friend of mine, so we're looking forward to hanging out together and catching up and having some fun. He's still at work, so I'm going to scout out a spot. Gonna try and find a good spot close to some wood, maybe pack out an area, get it ready for a tent. Then I'll go head out and grab my buddy Joe and come back here, set up camp, and get to having some fun. The snow is supposed to start early tomorrow morning, and we'll pack up camp and then head into the woods. I'm really looking forward to this weekend. Let's go find a spot to pitch a tent. This weekend we're going into an area that I haven't been in about 20 years. And at this point it's about 3 o'clock and time is shorter. So I'm going to leave all my gear in the truck while I search for a spot to camp. There's no point in having extra weight while I search. This is an area that I used to frequent in my youth, and I have a pretty good idea what's going on, where to go, and what I'm looking for. But things have changed over the course of 20 years. The area's been logged out, and what I want to do is find a nice flat spot where we can pitch a couple tents and collect some wood while there's still daylight left. That looks like a good spot for a tent right there. So I found this nice little flat spot on this knoll right here. It's gonna work out great. I just wanted to find a spot that was suitable to camp. And I've done that. So now I think I still have a little bit of time to run some gear up here. I'm gonna take this time and play pack mule and haul a couple loads out here, get everything set up, because this is definitely the spot. And I believe that we're just staying in this one spot for the night. In the morning, we're gonna pack up and we're gonna head deeper into the woods. So, adventure time. Yes. I was coming over here to get that wood right there, and look what I found. Check that out. Initially I thought this might have been a squirrel, but I don't think it is. I actually think it looks like it might have been a coyote, but I'm really not sure. I don't know. Check that out. Wild. That was pretty cool. Nature can be brutal. I wonder what did that. Back to the task at hand. Wood. Well, I've made a couple trips, hauled up some gear, collected a little bit of firewood. There's plenty of firewood around, so that's not going to be an issue once it gets dark. And now I'm going to go get Joe. I don't know how much I'm going to film tonight, because I just want to hang out with Joe, catch up, you know, eat some food, drink a couple beers, and chit-chat and laugh. But tomorrow, that's when the real adventure starts. The snow's supposed to move in, and that's what we're here for. So I'll be sure to film that. Now it's time to go get Joe. I'm coming for you, buddy. Yeah. Oh, that feels good. That feels good. Eat. That kind of looks like a middle finger to me. I wonder what my tent is trying to tell me. I slept until 9 o'clock this morning. That's crazy. I haven't done that in a long time. Got down to about 0 degrees. And I slept like a baby. I slept really, really well. And this is the shelter that I'm using for this trip. It's the Lux Rocket XL. It's a pretty neat, fun little lightweight shelter. And I brought it out this weekend so that I could test it in snow. Joe has the Megahorn, and if anything goes wrong, if that ends up being inadequate or can't take the snow load or whatever, I can always hop into the Megahorn with the wood stove. I've got a little safety blanket there. But yeah, got kind of cold. It's about 0 degrees right now, and I'm digging it. Had a pretty slow morning, and that was nice. Made some tea on the wood stove. It's nice and warm in there. What a difference a wood stove and a tent makes. Hot tents are awesome. I slept really well last night. I'd like to show you my sleep system. It's the same sleep system I always have, pretty much. I have 2 ground sheets, Thermarest, lite, my Nemo Tensor inside the fleece sleeve, and my Outdoor Vitals 0 degree down bag. And I slept very well last night. Nice and comfy. For lunch today, I'm going to be making dehydrated cabbage soup, which I have yet to try, so I'm pretty excited about it. And I know Joe likes stuff like that as well, so I have someone else's opinion on how it turns out, so that'll be nice. And I'm also going to put in the ground turkey and vegetables that I like to dehydrate as well, because that will go in pretty well with the soup. So I'm going to get that on the pot and on the wood stove. It's a good day for soup. Real good day for soup. All right, there it is, guys. Looks like it should. Just like cabbage soup. Yeah. Smells really good. This is a hit. This is really good. Might not look all that appealing or appetizing, but it's cabbage soup. If you like cabbage soup, try this. I'm telling you. I think this is fantastic.
Taste is right there. Nice and hot on a cold day.
Yeah, it's the spot, doesn't it?
Delicious. Well done.
Thanks, man.
Got a little heat to it, too. Just
It
a
does.
little zip.
That's those habaneros from the garden.
Good consistency.
Yeah, it's not mushy. There's texture there.
Yep.
Awesome. I'm super pumped about this. All right, everyone. We're gonna bail out early. We're gonna pack it up and head on out of here. It's about 3 degrees right now. The temperature's dropping. It's better to play it safe than be sorry. All the time. Every time. Joe had a pretty cold night last night, and there's just no point in pushing the limits. We're not far from the vehicle. It's an easy walk out of here. It's going to be colder tonight than it was last night. It's just not worth it sometimes. So we're calling it. We're going to go eat pizza and hang out and laugh and be happy and play pool and be warm. Ultimately, we know that we're in for a long, hard, unpleasant night. And sometimes it's just not worth it. So we're going to pull the plug. It's always best to play it safe. The good times will continue. So thanks for watching, guys. This trip isn't what it was planned out to be, but that's what happens with plans. Sometimes they just don't work out. Sometimes it's just better that way. It's better than something bad happening and regretting it. So be safe. Enjoy the outdoors. Thanks for watching. My name's Justin. I appreciate your support, and I'll see you next time. Now that I'm done editing this video project, I realized that I could have explained the situation a little bit better as it was happening. But as it was happening, I was concerned about what was happening a little bit more than filming it, and the process was changing the whole time, so I knew that I didn't want to film a bunch of stuff that I just wasn't going to use anyway. So I'm going to quickly explain what happened, how we dealt with it, and how the situation played out. On day one, we were just setting up a quick camp. We were just going to hang out that night. We hung out by a fire, didn't set up any tarps, and we were just going to pack up and move on the next morning, go deeper into the woods. Now, I was using the Rocket XL, and Joe was using the Megahorn. The reason I was using the Rocket XL is because I wanted to test its capabilities in the snow. I wanted to see how it could take a snow load. And I knew that if anything went wrong, I had the Megahorn as a backup. I was half expecting to need to use that backup, and that never happened. I slept like a baby. I slept late. I slept in until 9 o'clock, and that hasn't happened in years. Joe, on the other hand, as it turns out, not so much. He hardly got any sleep at all. His sleeping pad failed. Now, that pad failing was all it took to make the rest of his gear inadequate for the conditions that we were in, and he suffered for it. He spent a long, cold night awake. When he hopped out of his tent and told me about it, I was like, yeah, that kind of sucks, and I could just see that he was exhausted. Now, it wasn't a dangerous situation, but it was uncomfortable enough for him to keep him up pretty much all night long, and he didn't get any sleep. I could tell the next morning. And I realized at this point that some of you may have been thinking, well, why didn't he just use the wood stove? And that's a legit question. But due to the fact that the plan was we were just going to pack up in the morning and hike deeper into the woods, I never bothered setting up the wood stove. We were just hanging out by the fire at night, everything was fine and dandy, and I really didn't think that we were going to need it. So, in my mind, it didn't make much sense to set it up just to potentially not use it and tear it back down in the morning. If we needed it in the morning, I'd just set it up real quick. As a matter of fact, we processed a bunch of wood for the wood stove the previous night, getting it ready for the morning, just in case we wanted to use the stove to heat up a breakfast or some tea. Well, it turns out the situation was what it was. Joe was really cold, so I set up the wood stove and got that thing fired up and made some tea. We drank some good tea, and Joe decided that he was going to try and rest for a little while in the warm shelter, build back some energy for the upcoming night. So while Joe was resting, I decided it was a good time to get some more firewood and get ready to bunker down for another cold night. At this point, I realized that we were not packing up camp and moving deeper into the woods. We were just going to stay put right there. So I just collected up a bunch of wood and hoped that some rest would do Joe well. Because the other big plan that I had for the trip was roasting a duck. I wanted to haul deeper into the woods, set up a tarp, start a fire, get to roasting a duck, set up our tents, and just have a good time, hang out, camp, roast a duck. So at this point, I was still kind of clinging on to the idea of roasting a duck. So I was gathering up a bunch of firewood, getting ready for that big fire. So a while later, Joe came out of his tent, and by this point, it was almost noon, and I figured it was time for some lunch. So I decided to heat up some good hot lunch, get some food in us, get us ready for this next half of the day. We ate a good lunch, which turned out to be delicious, and then Joe pretty much right away set out to digging in and hunkering down for another cold night. He was gathering up hemlock boughs and processing wood and just doing what he could with what he had to hunker down for another night. I was really hoping that a little bit of rest and a good hot lunch would turn things around and we'd get our second wind and we'd start getting right back into things. But it slowly became evident to me at that point that that wasn't really going to happen. At this point, my motivation for the duck just kind of faltered. I knew that it was going to take a lot of time and effort. The conditions were pretty miserable to be standing outside, and I just lost my motivation. I wasn't into it. I knew that it was going to take a lot of time and effort, and honestly, I just wasn't motivated to do it. I had lost motivation to cook the duck. I didn't really want to do all that work, put in all that time and effort to just be exhausted, hardly eat, and then crawl into my tent and pass out while my buddy hunkered down for another long cold night of waking up every other hour to feed the wood stove so that he wasn't freezing. So we just kept collecting wood and getting ready for the night. But by the time 3 o'clock rolled around, it just became pretty clear to me that Joe wasn't snapping back into it, and he wasn't having that much fun. He was just cold and tired. The high temperature of the day was 5 degrees. It was already dropping, and it was just going to be a long slog, and I knew it. So we didn't get to the waterfall deeper into the woods. We didn't roast a duck. So now we're looking at just crawling into our tents once it gets dark because we're exhausted and hanging out in our tents and weathering the night through. And ultimately, that just did not sound fun for me, and I knew that it wasn't going to be fun for Joe. Now, to Joe's credit, he never complained, never said a word about bailing, nothing of the sort. He was cold the night before. He told me about it, told me the situation, and then did his thing and got his head into the right space and started buckling down on getting ready for another long, cold night. So all of this factored in, and I just knew it wasn't going to be that good of a night. I brought it up and said, look, dude, what do you think? I mean, how do you feel? I'll leave it up to you. If you want to call it, let's just call it. And we came to the decision that that would be the best idea for this particular situation. Now, at no point at all did I ever think that we were in a dangerous situation. He was cold and miserable the night before. It happens to the best of us. You know, most of us have been through it. Once you get to that point, you're exhausted, spending another day out in the cold. It's hard to recuperate from that. So I didn't want to put him through that, and we talked about it and chit-chatted about the options and what we were looking at, and decided ultimately to bail. And it was a good decision to make. And I'd just like to take this moment to say that turning around is a good thing. You don't have to be a hero. And knowing when to turn around and when to quit, it's a good trait to have. And it's a necessary thing to know how to do when you're dealing with conditions that could ultimately kill you. I think he would have made it through the night fine. It just would have been a really long slog. And there's not much fun in that when you can just pack up your stuff and walk on out. So that's what we did. And there's no shame in it. Knowing when to turn around is a trait that is necessary to have when you're playing in conditions that can kill you if something goes wrong. Just Joe's pad failing ruined his whole system. So I know a lot of people are going to say, well, maybe he should have more stuff, and maybe you guys weren't prepared. Maybe you shouldn't have been out there in the first place. But honestly, none of that's true. We were close to our vehicle. We had the two of us to rely on. And we made the right decision when it came time to make those decisions. The fact that there were two of us there, it gives us a little bit of wiggle room to push ourselves and to be a little bit more bold than maybe we normally would, because we've got each other to rely on. I saw the signs and I knew what was happening, and I brought up the situation. Just like if anything happened to my shelter, his shelter would be there ready and waiting for me as a backup. So it was a good situation to push ourselves in. And for many people, camping isn't necessarily about being comfortable. It's about going out there and finding your limit and pushing yourself and learning what you're capable of. And just because you're capable of it one time doesn't mean you're going to be capable of it another. You know, things happen. You can be put in the same situation several times and the results can be different. So just some food for thought. I'm going to stop rambling. I don't want to make this too long-winded, but thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. If you've made it this far in the video, I really do appreciate it. Thanks for the support. I'll talk to you next time.